Then the next law says the government demands taxes. Which creates value in the currency. Sometimes this constitution merely outlines the system, which sometimes is not really necessary to outline in the constitution. An absolutely minimum constitution would only consist of chapter 3. It would simply only set up the national government, who can then make up all these other laws and decisions. But this is a more robust general system, covering many other things. Because it is such a central, hard to change document, it stabilizes the society. The next law establishes a government bank which can, for example, put a minimum service into the system. There is at least one way that the system immediately works without relying on private enterprise. If this bank service is made quite rough or maybe even expensive, there is a lot of room for better private initiatives. Which is all a matter of policy. Then the next law says the government establish a mechanism for people to get consumption credit to buy things they need right away. This system is to behave without cost to the taxpayers. Then there are two laws which are meant to reduce the corruption that might occur in this banking system. Such as that they cannot give loans to people they already know, and they have their job security and wage tied to their proper functioning. Then there is the whole investment system infrastructure. Two-thirds of a council government can set up new service groups to manage investment. Also for businesses, there are three types of funds outlined already. The government can establish an investment service group with the obligation to ask permission for a budget-neutral loan or credit with the government regarding every individual transfer of money into the economy. So this is an investment fund which constantly has to go to the councils to ask stamp of approval for every single loan. Then there is a second type of fund which says it's A52 Investment Service Group Loan Maximum. The government can supply the investment service groups it establishes with a maximum amount of money it is allowed to lend out in the economy. So this is a a fund which has simply a ceiling. For example, they can put 30 million in loans into the economy and then no more. Then they have to wait for funds to be repaid and then they can make new loans. Then there's a third fund type, which is even more independent, it's more control. This sub-article 3. The government can supply the investment service groups it establishes with a certain amount of credit which it is allowed to spend. So this is a service group which can actually make a loss. They could even spend money away that way. I know that it is a constitution, and as such it is a document which ultimately in complete detail and on matters of ambiguity will have to be interpreted by the Supreme Court, the law court in this system. Then there is the investment permit. Which are for the non-directly appointed groups or individuals who invest in ways that the government does not disapprove of, which of course is the will of the people, ideally. For these groups or individuals, certain limitations are lifted. Then there is A2, A7, investment monopoly. The people, or in their absence a two-thirds majority of government, establishes a maximum amount of money expressed as a multiple of average wage, above which contracts involving payment of money for receiving money, such as loans between non-government market actors, are void, or the received money having the status of a gift. The limit is 1/4 times the average wealth. This is a general rule for all loans, whether they are business loans or consumption credit loans, mortgages, which says you cannot loan more than this amount. If you do, you are actually handing out a gift to these people, who then, if they get the money and they know the constitution, can go to the court and say, hey, these people have given me more than the limit, so now I own it. The purpose of this law is to make a difference between casual loans ordinary people make to each other, and to the plutocratic banking, funds, schemes, criminal money, which is all extremely dangerous for society. So it's cut off all. It's obviously not a limit for the people who have the investment permit. That's an exception noted in the permit law. Then there was the no trade in the debt, which was already mentioned. Then there's the wealth maximum, which was already mentioned, and the fact that the wealth of small children is added to the wealth of the parents to prevent hiding money in children. This will of course be a popular game otherwise. Then there is another exception for funds which have the investment permit who can own more than the wealth maximum. Then there's insurance business, which is also based on permits, because the enormous pools of money are dangerous for the rest of the people. Money is power, after all. Little side tour. Why is the wealth during rebooting cut so drastically? Well, if you do not do this, then the plutocracy will retain value, and they will most certainly keep the value in other nations and hide it everywhere. So it will be an enormously great hunt to destroy their wealth. Because if you do not get that wealth, what they will do is they fund terrorism, assassinations, wars, lies, and so on and so forth. So this is of course the popular game. Sometimes looking at the camera to see if I have still time on this section. Then the government establishes limits for the amount of what the old socialists always called the accumulation of capital, which is limited by this law. So the government established a limit for the companies, how much they can own. And this is per employee. And by default this is 5 times average wealth per employee. And the government has the right to reset this maximum for certain sectors of industry which are, for example, highly capital intensive, such as for instance shipping, or you have to own a large ship, and to reduce it much below this for capital poor operations. Then there is the law that already mentioned a business which uses illegal speculative money, which is not coming from the investment permit sector or from the government, that these companies will then immediately become democratized. Then there is the law for the bounty as well. That will be fun, wouldn't it? Then there is a sort of catch-all law which says that no person can, I'll read it, A2A-12, no speculation. No person is allowed to make a living income entering a risk-taking state by lending or otherwise investing not directly physically useful instruments of economic money, instruments of economic value such as money in businesses. But directly physically useful, I mean a shovel is useful, a paper saying shovel is not useful. All income in 1 month above a certain limit made from such not itself as an act of productive speculation is to be surrendered to the government immediately. The limit is 1/20th of average monthly income.